Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hindsight, Episode 1. Hindsight is the podcast where I just try to give my perspective on things that I went through or dealt with after the fact and my best advice on the topic based off what I learned. This is an unscripted podcast, so excuse any awkward places where I'm just silent for too long, trying to figure out what it is I want to say next, or times when I say like this. I hope that you will still enjoy listening and maybe even learn something. So, first of all, this one is something that I just learned fairly recently, and it was not a pleasant revelation, but I learned throughout the last few years of my life that I had developed some really toxic habits. I don't know if I would consider them personality traits. I suppose if there's anything you do long enough, it can become a personality trait, but I do tend to prefer to associate your personality traits with the things that are truly you, those being beneficial and positive things, and anything else that you do and ways you behave are just negative habits. But I didn't even realize how toxic this mentality was and this way of behaving was, because I'd grown up with this really preachy mentality that if you believe you're right about something, then it's your duty to try to fix other people, basically. And that if people who disagreed with you didn't feel uncomfortable around you and talking to you, then you are doing something wrong. I mean, crazy as it sounds, that was the idea that was taught to me. And so, whenever I thought that, I was right about something and that the person that I was talking to was wrong, I would try to push on them that they should change and needed to change to my ideology, and that's not how relationships are supposed to work. I sincerely thought that I was helping them, that I was trying to save them because I didn't want them to suffer, and I thought that my belief system, my ideology, was the way to deal with the suffering and the emotional hardships that they were going through. And I'm not going to be one of those people who tries to force anyone to believe anything, but I personally don't think that relationships are meant to revolve around converting other people to your mentality, to your ideology, and any relationship that isn't built on a foundation of love but is built on a foundation of trying to convince someone of something is more like propaganda than a relationship. And I hadn't even realized this. I was cruel, I was intense, and I didn't even know that I was doing these things. I would not want to, pursue other trains of thought. I was extremely pushy, trying to turn the conversation back to this and force people to talk about issues that they weren't ready to talk about, because I was like, if you don't talk about it, then you're not going to be able to deal with the emotions, which to a certain extent is true. You have to be able to talk about the things that you went through and talk them out so that, you can recover and move on. But you can't force that process. Recovery isn't going to come by forcing someone to bare their soul and air their dirty laundry. And that was never how a relationship was supposed to work. And it wasn't until years later, really, that I started to realize what I was doing, this cute narcissism, honestly, that I was practicing because it had always been what I was shown. I thought that was normal, and it's so crazy to me the things that we can learn to consider normal or think are okay just because we've seen them for so long. This is the mindset and the habits that I grew up with. When you grow up with a parent who is a narcissist, you can become convinced that that's normal, that that's healthy. It wasn't until finally realizing how painful this effect had been on me and how much this had hurt me that I realized that I was doing the same thing to other people. And I'm still trying to learn how to properly, express opinions to other people. How do you live what you believe and express what you believe to other people while still being respectful enough to give those people the liberty to realize that everyone has to be able to believe the way that they believe, because anything that you believe just because somebody forced it on you or pressured you into it can't really be called a belief. It's just peer pressure or intimidation. And in the end of the day, I believe that we have to come to whatever beliefs we settle on because it's truly what we believe, not because somebody told us that this was right or that this was wrong. I think we all have a spirit in us that will help us to realize what is right and what is wrong. But honestly, that can be so diluted or so muted by the things we've experienced that we can learn to believe that things are wrong just because somebody told us that since we were very young, or that things are right just because someone told us that when we were very young. And it's so difficult to try and reset our minds after we've lived in those cycles for years and try to realize that we have to start from ground zero and figure out what we do believe, what we think is right, and what we think is wrong. Honestly, it wasn't until I started seeing the ways that my ideology had failed me, that my theology didn't line up with what made sense to me. And I had to go back and question, why did I push this so hard on other people? Why did I tell them that they had to believe this? And I was so sure that this was the only thing that could be right, that I had to be right. There wasn't a possibility that I could have been wrong. I don't believe in relative truth, but I do believe that people are extremely capable of making mistakes. And if I acknowledge myself as a fallible human, then I have to be willing to believe that there's a possibility that I could be wrong and that someone else has a chance of being right as well, just as much a chance as I do. I could be completely wrong. I believe that what I believe is right, but I might find out years from now, that something that somebody else said that I disagreed with was right. I might have been wrong this entire time, and the idea of that can be a little bit daunting or a little bit intimidating, to realize that at any point in time you could find that your life is a lie, I suppose. But I also use that to realize that I think we need room to stumble in this world. We need room to make mistakes, to try and figure out um, what we believe, and if it comes to us or we realize at some point in time that was wrong, to admit that we were wrong, to shift gears and to keep moving forward, because I don't believe in this life anyway any of us can ever have all of the right answers. And that is so contrary to what I was always taught growing up, that there was this set in stone standard and it was a law to live by, and it couldn't be wrong in any way, shape, or form. But when I started really looking at that standard more closely, I started seeing all of what looked like holes to me in this mindset and this ideology, all of these things that didn't add up, all of these things that couldn't make sense with what I believe, that love is the ultimate, that we have to love everyone, love each other, that the only thing that can make life good is love, but that love can heal all, love can conquer all, that everyone really could heal from everything and learn to be okay if we all had the strength of heart to love each other. But love wasn't the priority of what I'd always been taught. It was being right, I guess. And the more that I studied it, the more selfishness I realized, the more inconsistencies and things that didn't line up or lead to love. And I really just am at this point in my life where I'm having to start over. And that's, of course, crazy after having just blindly believed something for so long. But I guess the idea of hindsight, and I guess that makes this a good episode to start with, is just that you can't just walk through life being led by the hand and going anywhere. You have to actually open your eyes. You have to look at what's in front of you and try to figure out and make sense of life. And you have to look at what's behind you, whether it's beautiful or whether it's destruction or in damage, and try to figure out what caused this, what led us here, why is it like this, and if this isn't good, if this hurts, if it's been hurting for a long time and you just told me that if it hurt, that it was something wrong with me. Why did I believe that without questioning it? And something that became one of the turning points for me. We have to take analysis of the past and use it to improve the future and ourselves, not just as, oh, that happened. When I realized all these things that I was told were how things were supposed to be, but they were so painful. And I don't believe life was ever meant to hurt. It does hurt. There are parts of it that are going to hurt, or that often hurt, because we can't avoid that, because we're imperfect. But it wasn't supposed to hurt. And if anyone tries to convince you that love is supposed to hurt, or that, people that you're with should be uncomfortable, should not be happy, I don't think that I can't agree with that. Of course, we're not always going to be happy. of course, we're not supposed to do the things we do just to try to make people happy. But I also don't think that every part of a relationship is supposed to be miserable. Is supposed to be us picking apart each other's flaws and telling us, you need to fix this, you need to fix that. Yes, there are pieces in everyone that aren't whole, that are broken, that need to be fixed, that we have to improve because we've gone through a lot and we are all hurting and damaged in different ways. But the way to heal each other is not to pick each other to pieces and to point out each other's faults. It's to love each other through the faults, and we acknowledge these, and we will gently remind each other when these things come up, but not always be hanging our faults over each other's heads, saying, have you fixed this yet? You need to fix this. There's something wrong with you. I don't believe that that is ever what a relationship is supposed to be. It's not love. And it's not a pleasant realization to know that I spent so much time doing this to other people, and that I'm no longer talking to some of the people that I did this to, and I can't undo that. I sincerely regret how much I hurt those people, and I wish I could have behaved differently at that time, but I don't want to just leave it there. Now that I know, I have the strength as a person to admit I messed up. I hurt other people, and that is not the person that I want to be anymore. And developing the strength of character to admit that you're wrong, the maturity to admit that you're wrong, is so important to being able to forge healthy relationships in the future. Because I would venture to say that it is borderline impossible to have a healthy relationship, or any relationship at all, with someone who is unwilling to admit their own faults and to try to do better and apologize when they hurt people. And this is something that I've experienced personally, and again, weighing my actions against the hurt that other people's mirroring actions have caused me. It's painful, but it is helping me to become a better version of myself because of the pain that I went through, rather than to just continue down a path of self-destruction and causing harm to other people. So that's definitely something that, in hindsight, is growing increasingly clear to me, and I hope can help other people to realize, if you're headed in that direction, or if you behave that way, hopefully before it spirals out of control. But if you're still in relationship with the people that you treat this way, to pause, to hit the brakes, and to realize what you're doing so that you can help yourself and help the person that you are in a relationship with, so that you can live in love and have a healthy relationship and rebuild and be able to repair some of the damage that's been done before you can't. I don't believe that it's ever too late. It's just one of those things that if you no longer keep in contact with that person, that it probably, won't be repaired. But obviously, if you can still talk to that person, then at the very least, apologizing and admitting that you were wrong is something I think is worth doing. I don't know if I would, I'm not about to say that I'm brave enough or strong enough to go and dig up the contacts of someone I haven't talked to in years. But point I guess, what we can do to fix damage, even if we don't intend to rebuild bridges, is worthwhile, I still think. Even if you don't want to form a relationship with a person again. And for me, there are a lot of reasons not to, because it was not healthy on both sides. But to still try and heal the harm that we've caused to other people as much as we can, no matter what the circumstances, I think is probably still worth doing. I don't want to make this ramble on for too long, so I'm going to call that a day for today's episode. This was the first episode of Hindsight. If you have an episode request, you can leave it in the comments of this video specifically so that I will know it is a Hindsight video request. Please be as detailed as you can. If there's a topic that you would like me to address or give my best perspective in hindsight on it, there is a possibility that I could not do a hindsight on it if I've, not experienced it or don't feel like I am after that stage enough to be able to address it. But if I can, I will try to do that. So if you have a request, please leave it in the comments. For now, I love all of you, and